We are amidst now what is called the dog days of summer, that stretch of time, maybe July into August, when temperatures are typically at the warmest and the most amount of people are out and about working out and whatever else they do. Let's bring in Orange County Register columnist for OC Outdoors, David Whiting, with a little more on what can be a very hazardous time for athletes as well, right, David?
That's right, Rick. Thank you.
Hey, I wanted to ask you first about something that maybe a lot of people take for granted. It has to do with diving, whether in a pool or a river or the ocean. This is something that can be dangerous, and I guess you experienced something along those lines firsthand, didn't you?
Yeah, I sure did, and I'm reminded every summer with this, with my other hat as a news director at OrangeCountyRegister.com and the Register. But firsthand, just a couple of weeks ago, 10 days ago, as a matter of fact, my daughter came home, and she's 20 years old, and she was missing a good chunk of her scalp, unfortunately. Luckily, not her skull, but pretty serious accident. She dove into a pool with a bunch of other friends, and she was the one, along with another fellow who happened to unknowingly pick the shallow end. It seems like a really dumb thing, but it's something a lot of us have done, and many, many people do, particularly even off the piers. Sometimes they dive off the piers. It seems fine. They go back. It's low tide. They don't realize it. People dive off of rocks on the beach. A lot of times, of course, that means there's rocks under the water as well. And unfortunately, a lot of these folks you can see sitting along the beach in wheelchairs, and sometimes those are the lucky ones, the unfortunate ones, and we've had a number over the years who have drowned or otherwise broken their neck. At any rate, it's really a great lesson in being careful and knowing where you're going. Maybe one of the best advices is don't dive at all. And if you need to, either walk into it or take a small jump. But be careful about what's under the water.
It's fascinating and tragic to me that we have to keep saying the same thing over and over again. I went to school with a young man who was paralyzed because of a diving accident, and I watched some kids jumping off the roof of a friend's house into the backyard swimming pool diving. And I'm just thinking, oh my gosh. Anyway, on an unrelated subject.
Absolutely, Maria. Those are really good points.
These are the kind of things we see on TV right now with the, I hate to label Mountain Dew, but we know their commercials. I mean, it's all about extreme sports and taking risks when you're out and about on a bicycle or jumping into the water or whatever.
Those commercials drive me crazy. We see people, mountaineers, leaping over rocks. That's a good way to break your leg. Absolutely right, Rick. Those things that we see on TV, they're practiced by stuntmen, not by athletes.
Right.
And there's a lot of trick photography going on as well. So don't mimic the Mountain Dew commercials.
No, well, as if I would. But on a practical note, you also are offering some really good advice. You talk about dehydration. I suffered a headache and was kind of nauseous the other day, and surprisingly, my daughter, who is an athlete, said, "It sounds like you're dehydrated."
Yeah, this is really easy to do, particularly as Rick was mentioning during these really warm days. It does seem muggy out there, but you're not getting enough moisture in the air to really whet your appetite, so to speak. So the best thing to do is drink before you get thirsty. If you're thirsty, it means you're already dehydrated. And it's an incredible how much we can sweat when we're outdoors. The rule of thumb is about a quart or a liter of water an hour if you're active outdoors. And that means a lot of water in a single day. Guzzling and drowning yourself, also not a good idea. It's called hypnotrapia. It can lead to drowning. But for most folks, unless they're doing a marathon and they're literally drinking every half hour or every half mile, I should say, you don't need to worry about hypnotrapia. You do need to worry about hydration, and the best thing is simply water.
Sure. Dave, we have about 45 seconds left, and I know we also want to address some communication devices, GPS units, and even cell phones. Now, they both run on batteries, so they aren't a given. And also, those cell phones, you never know where they're going to work.
Yeah, I was in one of these incidents, and I have a column about this as well tomorrow, along with these tips. But I was out in Oregon, Southern Oregon, climbing with my sister. We had a tough time. What was supposed to be an 8-hour climb turned into a 13-hour climb. Right. I got back, and my mother and my other sister were furious that we hadn't called. We did not have cell phone connectivity in there. Some companies might have, but other companies don't. So don't rely on those cell phones. Tell people where you're going. When you just go for even a walk or a hike, let a loved one know. Better yet, put it in writing. And then be sure that you're back when you tell the people that you're going to be back if you possibly can.
Right. David, having worked in Medford, Oregon, I can relate to your problems there in Southern Oregon. Listen, David, thank you very much for the time, and I look forward to chatting with you next week.
Thank you, Rick.
All right.